The Cat Who Saved Books. This came out in 2017 but was translated in 2021. Sasuke Natsukawa is the original author, translated by one Louise Heel Kawai. All right, I'm pronouncing it right. I would, as this says right here, call the book charming or maybe even cute. Interesting enough, though, this is about this cat here. This is not your main character at all. Your main character is one Rentaro, who is a high school kid whose grandfather just passed away. This grandfather owned and operated, I guess you'd call it a used bookstore, or maybe an old bookstore, maybe even a rare bookstore. It certainly isn't a Barnes & Noble experience, but you can still walk in and get the Count of Monte Cristo, so it might not, maybe a combination of rare and used and old. It's just a fun, quick book to get through. Nothing particularly amazingly deep about any of the characters except for Rentaro. Everybody else a little bit cardboard, including the cat, although he's got a nice little attitude. I call him he. They make a point of pointing out at the end of this book that they don't know what gender the cat is, so excuse me there. So when Rentaro is actually called, there's a word for him in here. He is called a hikikomori, and this is a Japanese term for someone, especially a young man, who has consciously decided to shut themselves away from society. So like an extreme form of loner. And so, for example, there he is, still operating the bookstore, and people from school keep coming by and saying, hey, you're going to come to school even though your grandfather died. He may only have about a week left to be there as an aunt maybe taking him in, but then, what happens to the bookstore? So interesting enough. Oh wait, I'm going to get to that at the end, so let's do that at the end. But the book comes in sections. All these could have been short stories connected, but there's the first labyrinth, the second, the third, and the final. The first one is called The Imprisoner of Books, and here they encounter this fellow who, he's in this large chamber, and he has all these books that he reads, and once he reads them once, he literally just locks them away. They're not to be reread or read by anyone else. The second one is The Mutilator of Books, and he literally is in the process of reducing books to their most tiniest little essence. And the example given here is a short story called Run Milos by Osamu Dazai, and he literally chops the book up until it only says Run Milos, so you can read the whole book in 5 seconds, because people just ain't got time to be reading all these books all of a sudden. And that reminded me of a meme that came out talking about these Star Wars prequels, episodes 1, 2, and 3, where the entire, however many hours it is, about 7 hours worth of film, can be reduced to calm down, Anakin. And so that's what's going on here with that particular labyrinth. The third, the seller of books, they get to they encounter this CEO of a company who only sells the books that sells. And this is a tough one, because that's what bookstores do, is sell the books that sell. The rest, destroyed. So the problem is, who's going to read those books? I used to make deliveries and therefore pickups at Barnes & Noble. And I used to have to, load up these obviously heavy boxes back into the truck to take back to the return. But on occasion, they would just throw them out. They'd rip the cover off and throw them in a dumpster. And they just, found that a little upsetting, I guess. Who is going to read those books? I mean, maybe they didn't sell long enough, but they're still books to be read by people. And that's the dilemma here that he has to face here. In the final labyrinth, it has to deal with the cat informs him that books themselves have souls like people do, and they can become corrupted, and that's what he encounters. It's a book using a person as an avatar, but it is a book, and it is completely corrupted, and it is very powerful. And in each one of these conflicts, it's basically a battle of words and ideas, and essentially you have to hack the other person and what their motivations are as to why they're doing what they're doing, and essentially talk them out of it. And I kind of noted that the way he speaks to the first three is similar to the way he talks to the corrupted book, but it doesn't work at first, and he has to come up with something else. It's not as easy with that last encounter. When this gets to the nitty-gritty, you wonder, this is about him, Rintaro, and is he going to break out of this shell? Is he going to, because he has people that do care about him, but he doesn't really realize it because he's so shut in. And it reminded me of something concerning, it was, there's these short philosophy videos on YouTube that come up in my feed every so often. And it tells you that one thing you might not ever realize is that there are people who have missed you and miss you. It might be a coworker at work who really enjoys your company, and when you're not there, they're kind of upset about it. Or maybe someone you used to work with or someone you used to know who just wonders, what in the world happened to that person? I used to like talking to them and being around them, and you just never really know what that's like or what they were thinking about you. And that's his dilemma here, even though the people are there, look, dude, we want you to come back to school. And they tell him, we like you, we want you to come back with us. And so that's the decision he faces in the end of this, really. So this is a tool about someone overcoming their personal problems, in this case, just being inside his own shell. It got me to thinking about statistics, and when I was reading this, like for example, the one dude in the first conflict, he said he had read 56,000 books. So I started to wonder about certain numbers, about how many books are there really in the world. And I had to do some guessing, if anything. I'm surrounded by 1,003 actual books, not including some TBR stuff, so maybe getting something closer to 1,100. Not including some role-playing game material, not including a load of comic books in there. And I don't know how many books are in a typical Barnes & Noble, but I did find out that they have a little over 600 stores in the United States, and at least recently sell 190 million books per year. Here in Michigan, in Detroit, there is it's a landmark at this point. It's a used book called the John King Used Bookstore. And it's 4 levels. I think each level is probably 100 feet long, and it boasts 1 million books in their advertising. And I believe it. I've been there a number of times, and it's just wall-to-wall, ceiling, books. I'm not sure about Second and Charles. There's a couple of them near me. It has to be at least 100,000 per store. And I'm wondering if it's the same in a Barnes & Noble. Got to be at least 100,000, maybe 200,000. But the U.S. book industry in 2022 made $28 billion in revenue. Google attempted a count of how many books there are in the world. Well, they didn't get how many actual books there are in the world. All they did was really a title count, and it was based on ISBN numbers since 1970. I believe this was done up to 2010, and so someone else did an estimate up to the present day. So there's at least 156 million unique titles out there in the book world. So how many books does a given author sell? There's actually kind of a number I can play with, because your typical author, I read somewhere, when you walk into a Barnes & Noble, it's not like every book you see on a shelf is representative of a multimillionaire. Maybe in the case of certainly Stephen King or something, that's the case. But most authors maybe make 10,000 off a given title, or 10,000 in a year, say. So let's say 1,000 books per title. If that's true all the way back to 1970, then we're talking something along the lines of 156 billion books. Is that out of the question that there are with ISBN numbers. That doesn't include independent books. That doesn't include total 100% ebooks. But that's about what I could come up with. So maybe there's 156 billion books in the world since 1970. There's been around 100 billion people on the planet, and about 8 billion of those are alive right now. So let's see, when did the first printing start? 1500, something like that. So I wouldn't think the number would double. There's been 300 billion books in the history of the world. 156 billion, give or take, in the world right now. Anyway, that's it. The next one, if I can grab it. The Doors of Sleep by Tim Pratt. Let's see, this fella has the ability to travel between worlds as he sleeps. The only problem is he has no control over the destination. So as he goes to these different places, which can take any kind of aspect from, I guess, dystopia to utopia, he is being chased by people who want his ability to do this. So Tim Pratt is a really good author, so I'm looking forward to that one. That'll be the next one I do. That's it. A little quick one about the Cat Estate books. I recommend it. Charming, like I said. Thank you so much. Have yourself a lovely day. Bye-bye.